Welcome everybody. It is the afternoon hour and we are in day 4 of Witnesses Afternoon. I'm sorry I could not live stream this morning, but we will do that tomorrow because there won't be any court tomorrow. So we'll catch up. But I did listen to it this morning where I was at. And basically we just have a gentleman who is a forensic specialist, and he has come on to just talk about the bullets and weapon itself. Basically, what I got from it was this particular weapon was definitely capable of shooting the 100 and yards that the victim was located. That some of these weapons, he said he has known, and I'm sure this was what's the word I'm looking at? Unusual case, but he has seen someone use the same weapon. I'm sorry, y'all. I got hair and everything else on me. The same weapon to shoot over 700 and something yards. Close to 800 something, actually. So with that, the weapon can be shot that far away and be accurate. That was one of my questions. So we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to go large. Hopefully the sound will be up today. The sound seemed good in my hearing aids, but what I get in my hearing aids may not be. Oh my gosh, I can't hear it. Oh my gosh, don't tell me we're going to have this today. It may be my hearing. Come on. Let me see if it's my hearing. Let's see if this guy's talking. I can't hear. I got all the volume cranked up as loud as it will go, y'all.
If you approach and open up what's going to be State Exhibit 1, 2, 3, which is the right one. And Rick, this is your reference to 5JA in your report.
The ammunition I used?
Okay. What is it? 1, 2, 3. Permission for Detective Adams to approach the witness.
So is this exhibit 1, 2, 3, or do you say item?
Exhibit 1, 2, 3. This is still conditioned on the same agreement with defense counsel. So, Mr. Rick. Rick, can you look inside that? Detective Adams, you can step away if you want. Do you have a glove still, Rick? Just, we'll get you. Go ahead. Put your hand in there. What do you see in there?
Yes, exhibit 1, 2, 3 appears to be the ammunition that I used for my test fire.
You can go ahead and take it out. Does that look like the ammunition? Is that actually the ammunition you used?
Yes.
So this is your exhibit. 5JA.
Well, yes, it's the exhibit that I looked at, not my exhibit. It's
I
the
get
sheriff's
it.
office.
Sorry, but that's the one that you took rounds from to test fire.
Oh, yes, and you can see my evidence tape, green evidence tape.
You signed off on that?
Yeah, I sealed the box with my green evidence tape, and the inner packaging also has my initials and date from 7/7/23.
And you compared the make and model of those rounds to the rounds that DPS used in their testing, right?
Yes.
And you compared those rounds DPS, and then also with the spent shell casings on the crime scene, correct?
Correct.
What's your conclusion about the make and model?
All the same Wolf brand ammunition, 7.62 by 39 millimeter caliber.
So all the testing done in this case from the DPS and from you, we're using the same make and model, Wolf projectile round bullet.
Yes.
Oh, I got it. Permission to a preacher approach. I'm going to show you Government Exhibit 102. Yes. You want to open that up for me?
.102 appears to be a magazine and some ammunition.
To what? What are they? Specifically.
There's another one AK-47 type magazine and 7.62 by 39 millimeter caliber cartridges unfired.
Same ones that we just saw in Exhibit 1, 2, 3, right?
Same type.
Same type. And those shell casings, so that round is similar to the shell casings found at the crime scene.
Yes.
And that magazine, you said that was an AK magazine?
Yes.
And if you know, would that AK magazine fit that gun?
It should. I have not tried it.
Okay. And since I'm on the, let me grab that from you. Since I'm on the gun, do you know the approximate dimensions of the gun?
Like the total length,
Total length, barrel,
about 34 inches.
and the barrel, do you know?
I didn't measure it specifically, but they're typically about 22 feet long, a little bit less.
So,
Then I'm going to show you
apparently,
34, image 4193.
it is coming across well through the
See that image?
Facebook page, so it's just
And
my
see it?
inability to hear.
The evidence marker number 1.
It's at night, so I'm going to try to. See a shell casing in there?
I do.
Can you circle that?
I can.
Okay, and you don't know, and obviously you can't testify to when this was collected versus the other shell cases, right?
Correct.
And you can't testify to the canine in the picture, can you?
I cannot.
I'll show you Government Exhibit 34,
So-
image
Yeah, I can't hear myself now.
4485, mush, no, sorry, scratch that, 4476.
Testing. Ah. There we go. Okay.
Zoom out.
I am going to back this up a hair because
What's that image at?
I want to know what's going on here, y'all.
476 appears to be an image of the.
I hate hearing aid technology. It's so difficult.
There,
Okay, we're talking about the magazines.
One AK-47 type magazine and 7.62 by 39 millimeter caliber cartridges fired.
same one that we just saw in Exhibit 1, 2, 3, right?
Same type.
Same type. And those shell casings, so that round is similar to the shell casings found at the crime scene.
Yes.
So when he's talking in the mic, I'm good.
AK magazine.
Yes.
And if you know, would that AK magazine fit that gun?
It should. I have not tried it.
And since I'm on the, I'm gonna grab that from you. Since I'm on the gun, do you know the approximate dimensions of the gun?
Total length,
Total length, barrel,
about 34 inches.
and the barrel, do you know?
Measured specifically, about 22 or 2 feet long, a little bit less.
I promise you, Rick, I'm almost done. I'm gonna show you government exhibit 34, image 4193. Those are the same conditions with defense. You see that image?
I do.
And we see the little tent, right?
Yes, the evidence marker number 1.
At night, so we'll try to.
Oh, little puppers. I have one but black. Is he peeing? Oh, the
Yeah,
audacity.
Shell casing in there?
I do.
Can you circle that?
Why would you get a picture of the dog going potty? Oh,
And
bullet.
obviously, you can't testify to when this was collected versus the other shell cases, right?
Correct.
And you can't testify to the canine in the picture, can you?
I cannot.
I don't know why.
I'll show you government exhibit 34, image 4485. Scratch that. 4476.
Here it comes, y'all. Graphic content coming if you are triggered. I better put that up. Banners. Trigger warning. I'm going to put me up here so I'm a little better off.
4476 appears
Yeah.
to be an image of the clothing from the decedent.
That you reviewed?
Look how low that bullet is in the
Hole in
back.
this.
Yes, there's a possible bullet defect in the shirt.
Can you circle it? And looking at that hole, I mean, there's a lot of variability here, but is that sensing your perfectionist, Rick? Looking at that hole, is that hole caused by a bullet in yaw?
It could be, yes.
I'll show you exhibit 34, image 4476. Is that a close-up of that same photo?
Yes, 4476 is a close-up of the defect on the shirt.
And then we have a better picture of that hole, right?
Look how low
Okay,
down
look.
that is on the jacket.
You know what's around the hole, what the staining is?
I wonder where the exit is.
Appears to be blood.
I know I need to start signing more, but it's really hard with the mic. I got to learn how to do this. I think the mic can pick me up here and I can sign up here. The mic is down. My sign is up. I am not interpreting this in ASL as a certified interpreter. This is my own language. Without hearing aids, I am deaf. So if I decide to sign, then that's my
Did you-
choice.
Did you also review the exit wound of the victim?
Yes.
I'm going to show you which
Ooh, where's that?
34, image 44.
Well, we're gonna see. Oh, they're showing body.
Reviewed for your report.
Right where I said it was.
And is that hole
Sternum,
consistent
upper
with a bullet in yaw?
I can't
Yeah.
believe they're showing this, y'all.
The exit wound
Okay, y'all.
consistent with a bullet?
Oh, sorry.
That's a Wolf brand bullet.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Not
I'm
inconsistent
learning how to
with
do
both.
this. This is all new to me, so I need to learn how to do this. So my bad.
With a
We're not going to show that
full-threaded bullet
again.
being fired from an AK-47.
It could be, yes.
So in break, y'all, we got some fun things we're going to do. I got some birthday gifts that I haven't opened yet, and I have Dr. Pepper
And
Pete.
there was some,
I'm scared.
there was, in your report, there was some discussion about, well, let's talk about the yaw of the bullet, right?
Yes.
And you testified that yaw can be caused by something in between the shooter and the victim.
Yes, we typically refer to that as an intermediate object.
And you had reviewed some evidence about a possible tree limb in this case, right?
Yes, there was a tree limb that was identified on the crime scene as a potential bullet impact site.
And I'm not asking you to testify about
But was there any lead residue?
where that tree limb was found, what direction it was found. Asking for that. I want to show you tree limb. Mark the last page of my set.
I'm getting ready for removal of image, depending on what it is. I think this is going to be the tree limb. In the opening statements, they said on the defense side that there was no lead left on the tree branch that was broken. So they don't know if it was the bullet or maybe another animal or a human that broke the
Let me show you Government Exhibit
branch.
71A.
It's hard to finger spell and talk at the same time. Okay, they're going to show the photo of that.
The remaining
Photo.
part of the branch. Is that right?
Oh, easy.
Yeah. And it looks like it's been, we got some sawing the base of it off. But the top part, can you circle the top part where I'm referring to? Where
Do you know how many branches look like
that
that?
looks like it was broken off, right?
I think they're cutting it off.
You're not here testifying to what possibly caused breakage of that, right? Right. The question I have for you is that branch, you see the size of that branch? Let me show you a different picture. That branch, can that branch cause a yaw? If the round hits that branch, can it cause a yaw?
Yes, that would be an intermediate object that could cause yaw if a bullet strikes.
And that branch, would that branch necessarily stop the bullet, or the bullet would just continue on but in yaw?
Mesquite trees, but with other trees in Washington, I would expect a branch of that diameter to not stop 7.62 by 39.
Okay, I just signed that. The yaw is the way it's broken on the branch. But honestly, I've seen those with pigs, dogs. I mean, not dogs, horses, cows, anything. Another human just running through there could have broken it and twisted it. So, without any bullet residue, lead residue, I couldn't say for sure. It's all speculation. No evidence.
Show you Government Exhibit 121. Aerial view from a drone image.
Okay. You're upside down. Flip it, dude. Ah, thank you.
You see that? The markings are not from the drone. The markings are for us.
All
to
right,
identify
if this
something,
is
but
the
you recognize
tree,
that photo? I do.
there's
And,
that could have been broken off
Exhibit 121. The blue is
well before that. I mean,
facing off to the right. Yes. And the yellow is the remaining.
if that's the tree in question, y'all, we can go into my backyard and find a lot of trees close to the house that look like that. we have a lot of storms that come through and strong winds, which Arizona does too. And many times they're twisted and broken off in bad weather. You can't sit there unless there's lead residue on that tree, say a bullet did it. Because if the bullet hit that, how in the heck could it have done a straight line 115 yards without deviating from the course? My humble opinion and what I know about gun shooting, because I've shot many times out at a ranch, at cans and rocks and trees and stuff, learning to shoot. And one thing my grandpa always taught me, if you shoot in an inanimate object like a tree or a rock, you could ricochet. The bullet will change course and ricochet. It may not come back at you, but it will not go straight through that course without deviating from course. So if they try to say that that limb was shot by the bullet and kept on the direct path, I'm using a makeup brush here, but if it keeps going direct line, if you put a laser from where that cone is to the victim and it's a perfectly straight line going through a tree, I call BS.
8 shell casings in yellow, right?
Yes.
Can you draw a circle around the cones, the orange cones? You see the ejection pattern, right?
Yeah.
Or the result of the ejection of the casings, right?
I do.
If a shooter is standing where the cones are, would the ejection pattern in yellow and blue be consistent with if the shooter is standing with the cones?
That's one possible location.
And also, do you know, does the cone start for the measurement to the victim's body, the 300
Alleged.
feet?
That's how I understood it.
Alleged.
350 divided by 3.
I'm not for or against the defense, but I am on the thought of innocent until proven guilty, so I'm harder on the prosecution.
1 second, Your Honor.
I am harder on the prosecution, and I know I've got to do this side harder on the prosecution because they have to give all the facts and prove that they're guilty, not the other way around. So for me, I'm harder on that
So I just want to get a little
defense lawyer questioning.
Is it the scene of the crime in this case? Is that correct?
That is correct.
He did not go. He did not go to the scene of the crime. I wish you'd get closer to that mic.
Did you notice any differences? Were you aware, back up a little, that that Leica scan was taken in a significant period of time after the date of this?
It was.
So it was
When was the
taken a long, that was not, the photos weren't taken on that day.
Later. There were lots more leaves on the trees. I think is what we were going with that.
And you can check the reports. Do you have that?
Yeah.
That's wrong, closed captioning. One thing is that all the photos were not taken the day that it happened. And so a lot of them were drone
When it was scanned.
photos
And you
that were not the same day. So how can they say specifically that the bullet made the
Not
tree
that I was
break?
particularly looking at. I was more concerned with what potential line of sights you could see, point cloud versus the crime scene
And I'm
photograph.
referring, if you remember, specifically to a quick repair tactic. Do you recall in the photo?
I want her on the mic. She's too far away.
In the area where the shell casings are located.
Recovery addict, thank you so much for your help. I will buy,
Ring a
but
bell,
I
I
don't
can't confirm that for
know
sure.
which one I need to buy. We'll talk more later. But thank you so much for your kindness.
And you're approached by the state.
I'm going to try something.
And
Oh,
you're
I can't.
provided with some background information about the case. Is that right?
Yes.
What background information were you provided with in a nutshell?
Well, I listed in my report several things. As I stated earlier, typically don't look at witness statements until I objectively look at the evidence, see what my.
Sorry if you heard the squeal. That happens with old people's hearing
What was
aids.
collected and what the crime scene photos tell me, but I submitted quite a few documents to look at. But I was primarily interested in the ballistic evidence was and what the crime scene photos told me.
And from the crime scene photos and ballistic evidence, you know that there is a group of shell casings, correct?
Yes,
And that group of shell casings is located in this patio area, correct?
it is.
And you know that there is a body that was discovered at this location, correct?
Yes.
And you know, I believe that from the light scan, you know the approximate location of the body, is that correct?
Well, to the.
I'm going to pause this so I can get me lined up perfectly. I'm trying to line up my 4901. Okay, that's 58.
Correct.
Yes.
And you know, I believe that from the light scan, you know the approximate location of the body, is that correct?
Well, to the drone was the initial distance determination, and then I received the Leica scan data, and what they did for the Leica scan was cone off the area where the body was recovered. Of course, the body wasn't in the scan because it had been removed. So I had an approximate location of where the body was recovered, and I compared that to the drone measurement that was taken at the time, and it was consistent.
And that's approximate, correct?
Yes,
You don't know the exact specific location of the body, correct?
I don't.
And were you told or did you receive any information that provided you with the positioning of the body that was discovered?
I had photographs of the decedent in place, so that sort of the face down, face up position, is that what you mean?
Okay, well, we can start there. So you have photographs of the body, right?
Yes.
It's interesting. My sound and my hearing aid's great. It's just what's coming through the computer.
Yes.
Or at least that's what the photographs show
My understanding correct.
you. Did the photographs show you how that body is positioned with respect to the house or the shell casing?
I don't think so.
So do you know specifically where the entrance was, let's say? Do you know where that is positioned in relation to the house and the shell casings?
No.
You don't know where that entrance wound is?
Not relative to the scene itself. There wasn't enough landmarks in those photographs for me to be able to determine where in space the body was. I mean, there was a tree nearby, so a couple of more photographs might have been able to tell, but with what I was received, I could not.
Okay. So you don't know, for example, if the body's face down and the head is pointed towards the house, or the feet, or vice versa?
Correct. I do not know the orientation of the decedent
Okay.
at recovery.
And along those lines too, obviously you didn't know the orientation of this person prior to this person being hit by a bullet, correct?
Correct.
So you don't know if this person was standing when he got shot, is that right?
I have no data to support a conclusion on that.
And you don't know if he was running or walking or anything like that, right?
That's correct.
And you don't know if after he got shot, he moved or took a step or staggered. You don't know anything like that, is that right?
I do not. I didn't see any evidence of bloodletting that might indicate movement after, but with a small caliber bullet such as 30 caliber, you might not see that initially. So again, there's no data to draw information or conclusions from.
Okay. And so I think you mentioned, using like a trajectory rod if there's a car with bullet holes in it, right?
Correct.
And sometimes that can give you a good idea of where this bullet came from when it hit this car. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's fair to say that's only going to work if you know, for example, that the car was not moving, right?
Well, bullets travel fast enough that typically speaking, if car is moving, the bullet path into the car won't change, but you don't know exactly where the car is in space. I guess that's your question.
Right.
Okay.
So it gives you approximations, right?
Yes.
Based on other factors that you might know or you might not know, correct?
Yes.
And so if a person is going to be shot, for example, and you don't know where he was standing or how he was moving or what position or direction he was in before he got shot, then doing something like a rod from the wound would not be very helpful. Is that right?
Yes, well, rods and bodies aren't typically, I guess, the practice now because bodies can move so much in space and so quickly. And an upward trajectory might be flat because the person's slightly bent over, some other reasoning for that. And also, we talked about yaw with intervening objects earlier. The bullet can yaw on the body as well. And so the tissue impact could veer that bullet from its original path as it travels through the body. And I've definitely seen that experimentally and in this work. So that's another, probably, in my opinion, another reason why medical examiners don't typically put rods into bodies.
And I want to come back to that in a minute. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the shell casings. That is a piece of evidence that you did examine, correct?
The casings from the scene actually didn't examine, just photographs only, but they were consistent with everything that just previously testified.
Right. So you get photographs of this group of shell casings at the scene, is that correct?
Yes.
And then you're provided this weapon, right?
Yes.
And you're supposed to test this weapon to get an idea of where these shell casings land when they eject on this weapon, correct?
Well, I didn't do ejection pattern on this rifle. It was another examiner. I was just simply observing my testing on where the cartridge cases were landing, to see if it was consistent with what was previously reported. If that makes sense.
That other examiner was Aaron Brunel, is that correct?
Yes.
So he tests the weapon and he makes a determination about the pattern of the shell casings, correct?
Yes, in this case.
And you reviewed his report prior to coming to your own conclusion, is that correct?
I did.
And you also mentioned that you fired yourself this weapon from a stand, is that correct?
I did.
But you didn't draw any conclusions based on that shell casing distribution, correct?
Correct.
Is that because that was on a different kind of surface?
Well, it was two surfaces at that particular range. Right about where the ejection port was, there was concrete and there was gravel. And I wasn't set up in my one visit to do that type of examination. You have to rope it off, and I usually 3D scan my ejection patterns. I have that ability.
So there are all different positions that people fire from, too, right?
Yes.
So you could be standing and holding a rifle up at your shoulder, correct?
Yes.
Or you could be kneeling and holding that same rifle, correct?
Yes.
You could be in a prone position on your stomach and holding that same rifle, correct?
You can.
And you can be aiming up or down or anywhere in between, correct?
Yes.
Do all of those things potentially affect the shell casing distribution?
Definitely can.
And if you're holding, let's just throw another variable in there. What if you're talking about somebody who's a left-handed shooter? Can that affect the way the weapon is held?
It can. I actually haven't done any pattern testing with left-handed shooters with those kind of rifles.
Effect was left-handed.
I believe that was mentioned at some point.
Did you adjust any of your testing to account for that variable?
I didn't do the ejection pattern testing, and my testing was done in a rest, so it wasn't right hand and left hand. It was a static rest that I placed the rifle.
So that's a question for Aaron Brunel, who did that testing.
Yeah, say that right.
I will do that. So when you're talking about what you can learn from a group of shell casings, for example, if you just stumble upon a group of shell casings out in the middle of nowhere, you could possibly learn what type of ammunition was fired. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you can tell that from the shell casings themselves, correct?
You can, and sometimes firearm type.
Sometimes firearm type. Yes, basically.
Yes.
At any point along that radius, the person could be standing, correct?
If I understand your question correctly, yes.
Okay. In other words, the shell casings themselves don't determine which direction a person is aiming, right?
That's correct.
You need other evidence to look at to determine that's correct.
Yes.
You might need actually a fixed point or a known point where the shooter was standing. Is that correct?
Or a bullet impact. Downrange.
A bullet impact on something that had a fixed point or a known point, right? Okay, so a bullet impact itself doesn't have a fixed point or a known point, right? Unless it's in something that doesn't move, correct?
Correct. Stationary object.
Right, okay. You mentioned something when you test fired the weapon. Oh, before I move on from that, describe a little bit how possibly aiming in an upward direction versus a downward direction might change the shell casing distribution that you see.
Well, it's all geometry. The cartridge case is being extracted, ejected. Roughly the same angle. So if you're changing the
I got my
angle of
phone lined
your
up. I got my
firearm,
everything down, so now I can hear.
So the distribution on this particular firearm is slightly forward of the shooter.
It has
to the
been
right,
difficult to hear
somewhere around
for me.
or so just on average. But so if you were, and that's from a horizontal bore, that's how the convention is to do this type of testing. Now, if you were to raise or lower that bore to not horizontal, to the ground, you're going to change that geometry of that extraction ejection and could potentially affect the pattern. How much it affects the pattern, it would depend on the testing. You have to do empirical testing to determine what variable, how much is that pattern distribution changing when you move the bore up and down.
So it's possible to do empirical testing to see what changes about a specific weapon or specific shell casing distribution when you fire at various angles, right?
Sure, but again, there's a safety concern for that too. As I mentioned earlier, if you hold it about 33 degrees, that bullet will go about 2 miles almost. So you have to be sure you're in proper conditions to test that. But yes, it can be done.
Okay. And so if there are two people who dispute, let's say, the direction of fire, one of them says, you know, this person was firing straight through this mesquite thicket that you mentioned, and another person said the shots were being fired at an upward angle over the top of one of the trees out there. There are empirical tests that can be done to see which scenario is more consistent with the physical evidence, correct?
Yep.
You would have to do that empirical testing to see if the cartridge case distribution would be affected by that type of angle of the rifle.
So you could test that.
Yes.
And then you could come to some conclusions about which scenario is more likely based on the physical evidence, correct?
If there was significant variability in the pattern of distribution.
And that wasn't done in this case, is that correct?
That's my knowledge.
Nobody asked you to do a
So they didn't do that test. You know of it, you didn't do it.
that this was being fired in an upward direction, correct?
Correct.
Okay. In fact, you were just asked basically to test the theory that these shots were being fired from the general location of the patio to the location of the body. Is that correct?
I actually didn't test that. Brunel did, but it was, his report was consistent with someone firing from the patio.
He didn't test it.
The data that I have.
What I mean is okay. Let me go back. You were asked whether or not the shots being fired from the patio were consistent with the evidence that you observed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in your opinion, shots being fired from the patio are consistent with what you observed, correct?
Correct.
And
But he never went out there. He's looking at photos.
The evidence that you observed is consistent with somebody standing on the patio and firing in a more upward direction. Is that consistent?
In terms of the wound and the decedent,
In terms of the shell case?
I wouldn't be able to determine that. I mean, again, I would have to do empirical testing, but I don't know if the distribution of the cartridge case would be significantly changed or altered by shooting it in the air. I mean, they're still coming out to the right of the shooter, but there is a geometry difference.
I would think that if you're shooting up, from what I have, they're going to fall maybe here. If you're shooting straight, they're going to fall more that way.
approximate radius
It does.
of these things, and they're aiming in a more upward direction.
Yes,
consistent.
That's consistent, true. Yeah.
There would be changes whether you're up or down. The way the bullets kick from the gun are the same, so it would lead to understand that if I'm got a weapon and I'm shooting parallel to the ground, the bullets are going to go this way. If I'm angled, they may go closer or they may go
You
further.
mentioned something about.
He didn't test it.
These bullets downrange, and you said that they basically made clean holes or something like that, right?
During my testing, all the impacts were circular.
Okay, that means when there aren't any objects in the way, the bullet's not tumbling, it's not in yaw, is that correct?
That's correct.
Are there weapons where when you fire them, even though there are no intervening obstacles, a bullet might still be in yaw or it might be tumbling?
Yes, I mentioned that during direct. The barrel is damaged, or the rifling is missing, or the barrel is corroded or intentionally altered. You can see bullets that leave the muzzle in yaw, meaning they're not stable as they leave the muzzle. And that was one of the tests that I performed. I wanted to ensure that that rifle was shooting straight.
And so sometimes just the design of the rifle or the condition of the rifle itself can cause a bullet to be in yaw, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So just because you see a wound that indicates the bullet is yaw, that doesn't necessarily mean any intervening object had anything to do with that, correct?
Correct.
So all this is speculation. I know a lot of
Something about point of aim versus point of impact. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, as I mentioned, the sights on that rifle can be changed, adjusted, depending on the distance you're at. So say if you have it set for 50 yards and you shoot a target at 300 yards, your point of aim is going to be different than where the bullet actually strikes. And it's also a common term when you're hunting rifles with scopes on them and you're sighting them in. That's what you're doing. You're changing, altering the optics so your point of aim matches your point of impact. So you know what you're hitting when you shoot. So that's what I was testing there, is with the 300-yard sighting, where is it striking at 100 yards?
And where is it striking at 100 yards?
Well, these sights compensate for bullet drop, right? You shoot the bullet through the air, it's going to be affected by gravity and drop. So that's what that sight is for, is to compensate for that drop bullet. So if your sight is set for 300 yards and you shoot at 100 yards, your bullet's going to be high because it's traveling
That's
up
right.
and coming back down to reach your point of aim, point of impact.
if you
That's
set
what I
it
saw in
low,
my
it's
testing
gonna.
is shooting at a circle at 100 yards, the bullets were impacting high. And that's what I expected to see.
And so at that distance, what was the difference between point of aim and point of impact?
Well, it's going to be a little variable. It's my testing setup, not precision, but about a foot high on average is what I was seeing.
And so just so you know, that means if you're aiming with that weapon at an object at 100 yards away approximately, and you aim at something that's 2 feet off the ground, so the bullet's going to land 3 feet off the ground. Is that approximately correct?
Assuming that you're aiming it properly. It's a precise, and these rifles aren't precise. They're battle rifles. They're not sniper rifles. So there's variability shot to shot where the bullet impacts even in a rest.
But there's just going to be a difference between where you're aiming at versus where the shot lands.
Yes.
Okay. And at 115 yards, the difference for this rifle is about a foot, right?
About a foot. I didn't map it out, but again, this is just my main concern there was the bullet stable.
And were you aware of the height?
There was a lot of tests you should have done that you didn't do before you get on the witness stand. I'm sorry.
I have to check the autopsy report, but the right flank would be several feet off the ground.
And just approximately, if I said it was about 4 feet off the ground, does that sound more or less correct?
Yes.
And we're not doing a scientific test right now.
Okay.
Just approximately. So, and we have to start with some assumptions, right? Because we don't know where this person was or how this person was standing when they got shot. but let's assume that they're just standing upright, okay? And the shot comes in and it hits the person about 4 feet off the ground. That means the point of aim was somewhere around 3 feet off the ground, correct?
Could be, yes.
At that distance, assuming that distance is correct, the person is just standing,
And
right?
aiming it perfectly, etc.
Okay. And so somebody from 115 yards away, if they're aiming at a spot that's about 3 feet off the ground, they're aiming down. Is that fair to say?
Yes, if they're standing upright.
And that's another variable too. You don't know how tall the person who's shooting is,
Right,
correct?
if they're sitting or if they're prone, they're on a knee.
Nor do you know in what position the victim was.
Standing up at that distance.
How tall? Was he leaning forward? Was he squatting down?
Correct?
The shoulder is off the ground.
Okay. Well, I mean, if the person's 6'2" or so, and they're holding it at their shoulder, that's generally a downward aim. Is that correct?
Right, you can anticipate the shoulder being 5 feet off the ground and rather than 4 feet off the ground, and you have to aim down.
Did you account for any of that when you look through the Leica scan and the state's generally asking, is this possible? Is it possible that this shot came from this location and hit this person at this distance? Did you account for any of those variables?
Well, I certainly account for them, and that's why my conclusions are consistent with and not inconsistent with the shot coming from that area, because I don't know the body's position, I don't know the shooter's
So half of your,
having fixed points for which to measure.
so you're guessing about
And so,
a lot of things here.
did you test different
You don't
scenarios
have
involving shooters of different
Enough
types?
information to give a specific answer.
And were you provided any information about
Everything
how
is
tall
speculative.
it was?
I might have, but I didn't consider it for what I was doing.
But you need that information to determine the possibility of this shot coming from this location and hitting this person, correct?
I don't necessarily need the dimensions of the shooter, just because there's so many different shooting positions, and also I didn't have a known position of the decedent either. So even if I would have considered that.
So what can you tell us other than the bullet can go straight out of that gun?
Like, how do you know?
And that someone could kill someone that far away?
If you don't have these variables.
Well, I know that the bullet can travel 115 yards and penetrate a body. And if we don't know the position of either the victim or the shooter, I go back to what I know about that particular weapon platform and what it's capable of doing.
But there are other variables that you have to consider, correct? For example, if there was like a 10-foot tall, really big brick wall in between where the shooter was and where the victim was, you would say that's not consistent with what you're doing on the ground. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
Maybe that's a poorly worded question, but you have to account for the fact that if there are intervening objects, it could be possible that those objects actually prevent a bullet from traveling and getting to that person, correct?
True.
yes.
And the position of the person has a lot to do with that also, correct?
Position of both parties has a lot to do with how that bullet gets to where it's going.
And you don't know the position of either of the two parties, correct?
That's correct.
And you also weren't provided any information about any other potential shooters in the area, correct?
No, there was no other ballistic evidence that suggested another firearm. I think I might have had some corroded pistol cartridges that they were too old to have been involved.
When you say ballistic evidence, you're only talking about firearms, ammunition, shell casings, physical things. Is that
And
right?
bullet defects on objects.
Okay.
That were provided to
You're
you.
not talking about witness statements, correct?
Correct.
So if there's a witness statement who says, I heard a shot and it came from somewhere over there, that's not evidence that you're considering in making that determination, correct?
Primarily, my analysis is based on objective data that I collect.
That was given to you and the evidence that you
Can give
collect.
a specific- Let me pull this picture. This is exhibit KK. And it's already been. And can you see that picture?
Okay, I'm just signed what I said.
Do you know what this is? Do you recognize this?
I believe this is the potential line of sight between the house and where the victim was recovered.
Correct. And so this photograph is taken essentially from, let's say, the view of the potential shooter, okay? And you can see it goes out there and you see all of those obstacles that are in the way, correct?
Yes.
And do you know what all of those obstacles are? Obviously, there are trees. Do you know what some of these other things are?
If I remember right, there was a storage box and some other random objects laying there.
Not a storage box.
And when you say storage box, are you talking about that big square thing that we see in the middle?
It's a smoker for food.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're looking at the right object. Do you know how high that object is?
I would have to go back and look at the scan data to measure it, but I don't off the top of my head now.
Did the scan data measure this and measure the height of this object?
Scan data measures everything.
Okay, so it'll measure the thickness of those pillars, I suppose, right?
Yeah, so what it does is it takes a point cloud and every point is a measurable data point. So anything that it sees, I can measure up to probably like 5 millimeter accuracy. So once that scan is done, you can go back to anything in the scene and measure it.
Okay, and I guess my question is, given these obstacles, given the known measurements that you have for these obstacles, given the fact that
This doesn't seem
weapon has
logical
be
to me.
aiming in a downward direction, assuming, and we're making assumptions, I understand that, assuming the shooter is a 6 foot and change tall person who's holding this rifle at his shoulder. Given the point of impact and the point of aim,
He would hit the smoker before he would hit the victim.
Based on the sights that were set on the rifle when I examined it.
That's correct. And there's that big object right there in the way, right?
I'm not sure it's entirely in the way. I'd have to look. I mean, based on the perspective,
Partly in the way.
it doesn't look like it's in the way, but when you look at the point cloud, it seems to be a little more line of sight available. It's hard to say what it leaves there, but yes, it's definitely something to consider as objects in the way of the bullet.
Oh,
And
thank
so
you,
I'm thinking
MP.
in a downward direction.
Thank you.
And I hit that object. That object's going to stop a bullet, right?
And it would leave evidence behind.
Right. And there wasn't any such evidence that you observed,
Not
correct?
that I saw in the document.
And same thing with those walls, the pillars of the pergola right there, right? Those pillars, those will stop a bullet, right?
Should, yes.
And if they don't, they'll leave evidence, right?
Definitely leave evidence.
And obviously that big mesquite tree, the thick branches, the thick trunk, that'll either stop a bullet or leave evidence, right?
Yes.
And there wasn't any such evidence that you observed, right?
Not that was in the documents that I looked at.
Okay.
Okay, I was just saying, basically, there's a lot of things between the victim and the shooter. It's not a straight shot.
Because you were discussing the tree branch that was burned, correct?
Yes.
And in the point cloud, does it show the general relationship between the location of that tree branch and the location of the deceased person?
It does.
Okay. And is it fair to
I think you're right, Toby Walker. I think the witness has given us as little as he can. It's time for lunch.
south, a little bit to the south of the deceased person, and it's in between the person and the shell casings back of the house, correct?
It is.
He got gutted on this one. Yeah.
Just describe to me, so you think that the tree branch can cause yaw on the bullet. That was your testimony, correct?
Yes.
And a bullet like the one that you're describing is a bullet that can go through that tree branch, correct? How much deflection is possible with this type of bullet if it impacts this tree branch?
I didn't do any empirical testing on how much deflection, but based on other testing I've done, you can think of a tree branch as being round, right? So if it hits it straight on, or perpendicular to it, it's going to affect it less. If it hits it at a glance, and I've seen that in windows, I've actually bounced bullets off of windows and not broken them because they hit so lightly, but still enough of an impact to stabilize the bullet. So it would depend, is the short answer, on where it hits on the branch, how much deflection and yaw you would get.
This branch was impacted at about 2 feet off the ground. Is that about right?
Well, assuming it was impacted, yes.
Okay, yeah, assuming that, and we don't know that. But I'm assuming that it was a bullet that strikes this branch. That's happening at about 2 feet off the ground, more or less, right?
More or less.
And it's a little bit closer to the house, so that might affect the point of aim difference. But 2 feet off the ground, you're going to have to be aiming at a spot lower than 2 feet off the ground with this rifle at that distance, correct?
It would depend on the distance to the branch. I mean, the impact testing I was doing was at 100 yards, so this is closer than that. So, and there's an arc trajectory on the bullet, so I would have to do some tests at that distance to see where you would have to aim, because it's coming out and going up and doing bullet things. But yes, there would be some kind of point of aim, point of impact difference.
Okay, and you don't know what that is?
Correct.
And so you don't know if that means that impacting at that tree from the distance is an aim that's higher than that tree or lower than that tree?
Right.
Okay, so we have no idea how the weapon is aimed if there's a bullet that hits that tree.
Yeah,
correct?
if it's a confirmed bullet defect.
Okay, and it's not a confirmed bullet defect, just to be clear, right?
It is not.
Okay. And do you know what sort of angle this bullet, let's say a bullet does hit that tree branch and it's gonna go up north where the deceased person is, right? It impacts at about 2 feet off the ground, this tree branch, but then it has to enter at about 4 feet off the ground. So do you know anything about the possibilities or probabilities of that happening?
Well, I know it's possible because I've deflected bullets upward. And once a bullet's unstable, it can go any direction it wants. And going back to my glass example, I mean, I was shooting relatively flat, and that bullet deflected 30 degrees off the glass. Again, it's not apples to apples really compared to mesquite branches, but the short answer is I would have to do some empirical testing to see what directions the defects or the deflection would happen.
And I'm assuming that's probably impacted also by whether this bullet is already in yaw before it hits that branch, right?
Yes.
So if it's already in yaw, it can hit something else, and then it could be thrown even more off course. Is that right?
It could.
And the short answer is, you don't know if this is really possible given the variables that we have on this scene because you haven't done empirical testing with these variables. Is that correct?
Correct.
Meaning mesquite wood is going to be different from another kind of wood and another kind of tree, right?
There's definitely varying differences in hardness of wood, and that dramatically affects bullet impacts and what happens after the impact.
And that's true even in the same species of tree, correct?
I would think so.
A tree that's maybe rotten or dying is going to be softer, let's say, than a tree that's, well, maybe it's not, I don't know, but that might make a difference, correct?
It could.
Okay. And there was some testing done of this tree branch to try to determine if it could be shown that a bullet actually impacted this tree branch. Is that right?
Yes.
And you didn't do that testing yourself, is that correct?
I did not.
But you reviewed the results of that, correct?
I did.
And specifically, the testing is looking for something that either contains lead residue or looks like a bullet hole. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in this case, there was nothing that appeared to be a bullet hole on this tree branch. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there was no lead residue collected from this tree branch either. Is that correct?
There's no lead detected on the tree branch.
So there's no indication that a bullet actually impacted this tree, correct?
Correct.
And were you also made aware that there was animal fur that was in or around this same area by this tree branch?
I think I'd heard that, but I don't think it's in the report.
I don't.
If one of the detectives
I don't think the defense has, I mean, the prosecution has the aha, gotcha moment that they're looking for.
Possibly.
And there's no testing that's done on the branch to determine when the
I'm
branch.
sorry, it's just not happening for me.
And that's a whole different area of expertise to determine the age of broken wood, things like that, right?
That is out of my realm.
Okay, mine too, if you can believe it. So there's no evidence to suggest that a bullet actually hit this tree and broke this branch. That's correct,
From
right?
the material review, you were correct.
No, no evidence. Yay, I got some sound. I figured it out.
Did you, or when you reviewed Aaron Brunel's report on that, were you able to come to any conclusions about the grouping of the shots?
In the cartridge cases,
With the shots that you fired
so
downrange?
the impacts,
So you don't know if they generally land close together or if they're very spread out?
with my testing, they were generally close together. I mean, they all hit a 3 foot by 4 foot panel at 100 yards. So,
Then it should have hit the guy standing next to him. If it's 4 to 5
yeah,
feet
it wasn't
in a pattern,
accuracy, it was
the other guy should have been hit. Or there should be
precise person.
bullet debris in the field.
Okay. So all of the shots then, and you're firing in a stand, right?
Yes,
So the rifle is in a static position, it doesn't move, correct?
yes.
So every shot is fired in the same exact position of the rifle, correct?
In theory, yes.
In theory, when you're testing, and I know it's not perfect, but it's as close as you can get to holding the rifle in the same position, firing shots downrange.
It is.
And that gave you a result of a 3 or 4 foot, would you say, sort of area of impact for the shots?
Probably less than that. Probably about a 2 foot. I mean, again, I didn't measure it. I was just trying to hit the paper, and that particular rest isn't as precision or as precise as I can probably get.
I'm sorry,
I'll hold that
prosecution.
rifle, but again, I was looking for different things.
Could you just sort of show with your hands how big across that area is?
Oh, so the pattern should have been about like that?
All of the shots you fired.
The other guy should have been shot too. My humble opinion.
How many shots?
I'll be
did you
back, y'all.
fire, remember?
Check my notes. $15 shots?
Okay, so all of those 15 shots landed in that area.
Yes.
In this case, you examined a body, right?
No.
Or you examined photographs of the body? Okay.
Yes.
That was not meant to be a trick, sorry. And you saw one entry wound in that body, is that correct?
That was my opinion. There was one entry, one exit.
There weren't any other bullet holes in that body, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't review witness statements, I know that, but there is a witness who states he was there just one step behind this person when this person gets shot. Assuming that the person who's firing the rifle in this case is firing at this person from 115 yards away, and assuming that person is holding the rifle steady and firing a bunch of shots in this direction, you would probably expect to see more bullet holes. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. I work a lot of officer-involved shootings of officers who are trained, very well trained to shoot, and they will empty 2 magazines, and I can find 2 bullet defects in the area they were shooting. So it doesn't surprise me that there were a lot of shots and not a lot of bullet holes or defects.
Given the grouping of this rifle, and given, let's say that the person is holding this rifle fairly straight and firing shots very rapidly, and given the grouping that you tested, under those circumstances, you would expect to see additional bullet impacts, correct?
Now, going back to my previous example, I mean, officers, when they qualify, have to shoot their magazine in about an 8-inch circle to qualify. And I've seen, again, lots of shots fired where the seams hit one time. So, I mean, and there's other factors to consider, but just the sheer accuracy of the firearm doesn't necessarily play into what I might see downrange.
How about things that are around this person when the person gets shot? If there are, let's say, 9 shots that are fired rapidly in this general direction, you're going to expect to see other things that are hit. Is that right?
Yes, there would probably be some defects in some of the trees out there, but what they would look like, I don't know. I know that some of the trees in Washington that I've shot and tested, very subtle, the impacts to them, and I only know to look for them because I put them there. So I could understand why an investigation might miss some defects that were out in that large area.
And if there are other animals in the area, for example, you might be concerned that the animal might get hit, right?
Well, yeah, anytime a firearm is fired, you expect that, there's a level of danger to targets downrange.
And same thing with other people. Other people are standing near the target, right?
Yes.
You said, according to taking a look at the entrance wound, that it's your opinion that that wound was caused by a bullet in yaw. Is that different from a tumbling bullet?
No.
It's the same thing?
In terms of how it's going to affect a wound, it's the same thing.
Are there degrees of yaw or tumbling?
Yes.
Can you tell anything, just to kind of narrow that down a little, if a bullet is somersaulting over and over like this, that's pretty extreme, right?
Bullet can
Yes.
turn this
That's
way.
the
That's a
word
yaw.
here with the ricochet.
Can turn this way.
That's
It
what's
can
causing
kind of
that,
turn
that bullet.
round and forward.
But it could just be that
Means it's how
getting a little
the
bit off
bullet
course is-
bends.
Certainly can, yes.
As
We
it
have
moves
high-speed
through
video
the
evidence of both of those.
air.
And there's no way to tell from examining this wound what degree of interference this bullet had before impact. Is that right?
No, and that's something we could do with empirical testing. If a tumbling bullet would still penetrate, travel through the body and still exit versus one that was simply just slightly unstable, how much energy is it going to expel
Everything
into the
depends
body, still
on how
have enough
much
energy to exit the
energy,
back skin or
how
the chest
fast
skin in this case, and go downrange. So again, that's
bullet
something that
moves,
can be
how
deciphered,
far,
but in this
closer,
case, there's no way to tell
farther
from
away.
the entrance and
A
exit
lot of
wound
different
if it's a tumbling bullet or
things
one in
that
yaw,
impact
but
how
for all intents and purposes, it's the same.
bullet
Okay.
moves.
But the degree of energy that the bullet loses has
Point.
an impact when it hits a target, for example,
That man.
right?
No.
Yes, and going back to that 800-yard case, that was one of the factors that I considered was the bullet ricocheting off the water because there's a river there. And would it still have enough energy to go 800 yards and penetrate someone and kill them? And it didn't. So there is a level of instability that will affect the energy as it travels downrange.
Okay. And we don't know what object or what was acting on the bullet that impacted this person. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that bullet was never found, obviously, right?
To my knowledge.
Okay. And without finding that bullet, we can't tell which weapon was responsible for causing this wound. Is that correct?
Right, if the bullet was recovered, microscopic comparisons to a particular firearm would be possible.
And then that's not possible, right?
Well, it's probably still out there somewhere, but not right now.
Okay. And having that bullet, we would be able to determine whether that matched the weapon that you tested, correct?
Yes.
And whether it didn't match the weapon you tested at all.
Yes.
So that weapon could be excluded or ruled out depending on the results
Mini,
of
mini.
testing of that bullet, correct?
It could be.
And you say the bullet's
Drug.
probably still out there. What do you
No.
mean by that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't recovered,
Pain.
and so we have a through and through wound on the decedent. So, in theory, that bullet is, somewhere out there.
That bullet couldn't have been destroyed on impact later with ground or anything like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, AK-47 bullets, the 7.62 by 39, are steel jacketed with a copper coating. So you see a copper color on the bullets, but they're not copper bullets like you would see in a pistol. That is copper coated steel jacket with a lead core. So pretty durable, pretty hardy, but also be subjected to rust since they're steel. But you don't see any fragments really on the X-ray, so that bullet's really not coming apart. So some of the things we look for on these type of injuries is there pieces of lead in the wound tract, like the bullets coming apart. Didn't see any of that on the X-ray, so I would anticipate the bullet is barely intact, whatever it is.
That's assuming that the wound was caused by an AK-47 full metal jacket bullet, correct?
That's correct.
But it's also true that the wound could have been caused by a number of different types of bullets, correct?
Yes.
What are some of the types of bullets that could have also been caused?
Well, it'll have to be a high energy, non-fragmenting bullet. And there's some other ones out there, but typically speaking, this is consistent with AK-47 round versus high energy, the lack of fragmentation that we see in this case.
What types of weapons are consistent with the type of weapons that can fire the rounds that you just described?
Well, the AK-47, the SKS rifle, which also shoots 7.62 by 39. There's, like I said earlier, a lot of other manufacturers chamber that cartridge in their firearms.
And can you, I'm sorry,
AK-47, AR-15. Oh,
Well, it would have to be probably full metal jacket ball ammo. If you had a hollow point or a soft point, you would see fragmentation in the wound tract. And so it need to be a full metal jacketed, high energy bullet.
how
And there's-
many types of full metal jacketed ball ammo ammunition exist?
Well, just about any type of military round would have a full
Many.
metal jacket. It's a Geneva Convention requirement. So 308 Winchester,
uh-huh.
7 Russian round, the Russian sniper round, it'll come to me in a second, 7.54. And so there's some other different rifle cartridges out there that do have full metal jackets.
You described the AK that you examined as a common type of rifle, right?
Yes,
Many of the drug cartel do carry the same weapon.
Okay, I just want to say what you meant by that, but you just answered that question. So that's the most common type of
Even a previous witness said that he hears them going off at Christmas.
Most of the ones in the world are machine guns or full auto.
Regular citizens carry them, not just Mr. Keller.
Would that then make that ammunition the most common type in the world as well?
It could, yes.
And so just to cut to the chase, there's no way to tell whether this wound that you examined was caused by the rifle that you tested, correct?
That's correct.
That's not something that we can prove scientifically, correct?
At this time, correct.
Okay. And you mentioned that this must have been a longer distance shot with a rifle. Explain what you mean by longer distance shot.
Well, a close range shot would deposit gunshot residue from the gases onto the clothing and the wounds. And those were tested and determined to be negative.
You said the clothing was tested, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember if any testing was done in the backpack?
I didn't see any of that in the documentation.
Okay.
That would have been important.
That's close to the body, right? That's almost close, correct?
Yes.
We use
And
wearing
that
it.
could be tested also to see if the shot possibly came from close range, correct?
It could be, but typically that testing is done around the wound area. So, but yes, any object or clothing item that the person's wearing, if it's outer on the outside, we would probably look at.
And if the wound is sort of here on the lower flank or back area, that's going to be near the backpack, correct?
Side.
Right, so a backpack. is
Lower
near
side.
that wound.
It could be, yes.
And so in order to do a full empirical test to see whether this is close range or further away, it would probably be a good idea to test that backpack too, right?
They could have been 10 feet away or 100 feet away.
Assuming that, right? And to your knowledge, that wasn't done in this case, right?
I saw no reports relative to a backpack test.
When you say that there's, was it gunshot residue that you're able to see to determine if this is a closer range shot? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. If you see gunshot residue on a person, or if you don't, how far away is the closest that a shot can be fired without leaving gunshot residue?
It depends on the firearm and ammunition type. And that's one of the common procedures that we do with distance termination, meaning how far is right away from target where all of that residue dispersed. And not
Did you not test how far it had to be away before the gunshot residue did not show up on the clothing? I would have put a dummy up and I would have loaded that dummy up until I got back far enough where no residue was found, so I knew the threshold.
What you generally mean is that shot came from several feet away or further.
And impacted some kind of intervening object along that.
Could the clothing cause that yaw that you described? Hitting the clothing?
Well, the clothing has the same type of defect.
What about the backpack?
Again, anything in that trajectory path could affect the bullets and its flight path.
Well, or it could have been fired from a weapon that shoots a bullet that has a yaw, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So there could be nothing in between the shooter and this person, right?
Good questions.
Yaw, correct?
Yes.
Because the weapon being fired could be the kind of weapon that produces yaw, correct?
Yes.
And not his
Given that
weapon.
there's no
His weapon didn't have that much of a
whatever you
yaw.
call it, sorry. You could have somebody who's standing just several feet away, firing a weapon and cause this wound that you're seeing, correct?
Right. A good rule of thumb is about 6 feet or so before you don't see it, but I've seen it. It's like everything else in forensics, there's always
I said 10.
exceptions.
I said
So you
10
would need to do the
feet.
testing
He
with
said
the
6.
firearm.
6
So this wound could have been
feet.
caused by somebody standing 6 feet away with no intervening objects, correct?
With the,
Possible.
with the firearm producing yaw.
You know,
I'm sorry, prosecution. You're not doing so well.
How soon that testing has to be done in order for that testing to be effective?
Well, we're looking for heavy metals, and so they persist. Looking for antimony, lead, strontium.
You can do that test pretty much.
Those metals stay there. And they don't degrade, say, like DNA does. So you can do that testing. I'm not sure probably the timeline, but I know it's a pretty long one to be able to still detect those metals.
And so the fact that that testing was done and there wasn't any gunshot residue discovered is a pretty strong indication that there wasn't any there, period, correct?
That's consistent, yes.
And the same is true for the tree branch, right?
Right, the lead would persist. In fact, I have a hole in Seattle that I tested every couple of years, and it still reacts, and the shooting was in 2009.
The fact that there's no other than that tree branch is a pretty strong indication that they're gonna have loss, right?
I didn't examine the tree branch, but just based on what I reviewed, that is true, yes.
I was hoping for more from him. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear how prosecution got to this point. Yeah, I got to turn that down. I wanted to hear they put a dummy in the field. They put the dowel through it. They stood where the person allegedly shot. They put a laser and they lined it all up. And this is definitely where the guy was shot. This is the place. This was the angle, ... And there are no dot connections for me. It was obviously clear. There was a big obstacle. It's called a smoker that could have been in the way.
Certain possibilities. And I just want to ask straight up about certain things that you cannot prove in this case from the bullets together.
God, I love this team. They're good.
You can't prove who the shooter was, correct?
That's correct.
You can't prove which firearm caused this wound. Is that correct?
Caused the wound, correct.
You can't prove which type of ammunition caused this, correct?
That's true.
Can't prove which bullet caused this, correct?
Also true.
Can't prove which direction the shot came from, correct?
Correct.
And we can't prove how far away this shot came from, other than further than 6 feet away from this person, correct?
Yes.
Case closed.
Correct.
I can't imagine anybody going up on that stand and beating that. I don't care if this man said he hated every person who lived outside of the United States. I don't care if he said he hated his mama. And I don't see how the prosecution's going to clean up this mess. I'm looking for it. All right,
Hey, Rick,
be back.
we'll leave off real quick. We'll start off with where you just left off, about proving. When we say the word prove, are we talking, you're referring to, you forensic scientists, right? Yes. You live in a world of certainty, right? I do. Absolute certainty. I try. I strive for that. So when you use the word prove, we're talking about, I mean, with absolute certainty, this is the weapon used to kill this victim, right? Yes. There's no way for us to have absolute certainty because we don't have the bullet, right? That's correct. But there's other evidence in this case, right? You've been in crime scenes before, right? I've investigated crime scenes. Yeah. And there's other evidence that helps people out to determine what happened in that situation, right? Yes. Other than the weapon and other than the bullet, right?
Objection, we do.
Let me ask you. I'll show you Government Exhibit 121. Remember that photo I showed you earlier? I do. And that's a picture of the property from an aerial view with cones. That's the top down of the porch area. And you see some, in the yellow thing, you see some cactuses to the right. Yellow circle? Yeah, like
Over
5
here?
o'clock, 5 o'clock on the yellow circle. Over here. Yeah, that one right there. You see cactus, right? Yes, right. The shell casings are found in the yellow circle, right? They are. All right, I just want to make sure we all understand cactus. And let's just assume, if I can just get right behind the, might just right here. I'm sorry, just right here. If I can put my pin right there. Let's just assume there's a potted cactus plant there, potted prickly pear. Assume that, right? Would that interfere with, just with my line sight, shooting in a horizontal way outward? A potted prickly pear?
It would depend on how those cartridges hit, but I mean, there is a pretty decent pattern of all them landing in the same general area.
I'm trying so hard to see the prosecution's side.
And you saw the body orientation in this case, right?
I did face down.
Face down? And you testified on cross. Did you see any bloodletting?
There wasn't any in the photographs of the scene that there was.
Once again, he didn't go to the scene. He wouldn't know.
There's obviously bloodletting around the wounds. But I didn't see anything, and there was nothing in the notes that I saw that there was any observed.
The guy could have walked with a bullet hole for a while.
You're saying, what's meant by bloodletting?
Bleeding, pouring, depending on the size of the wounds. And
I'm going to get ready in case I show it. We don't need to see it.
Will be patterns to interpret.
For the respect of the families and those involved, I don't want to show it again.
35A already admitted.
Okay, we're not looking at that, y'all. Okay, we can look at that.
Did you get a chance to see that photograph at all?
Look at the backpack. I mean, look at the fanny pack.
Do you see, in that photograph, do you see bloodletting or blood trails?
Not from that photograph.
I'm going to object on foundation. I don't know that the witness can testify to this subject.
He's a forensic, bullet forensic, gun forensic.
Yeah.
The question was whether he saw it. Well, he said.
That's exactly the question and answer I want. I mean, you're striking the answer though?
Yes, the objection is foundation. I don't know that this witness testified what against whether he did.
Beyond his scope of expertise, he is a bullet forensic, not a blood spatter forensic.
Question was, did you see it?
Did you see it? Yes or no? No. End of questions. No more. No más.
He testified on cross-examination that there's no use trajectory rods with bodies.
Nope.
It's still used, but it's not the common practice for trajectory rods and bodies. My understanding is certainly in King County, it's the other area.
So there's no trajectory rods here. In your
They use lasers now.
expert opinion, if there's no trajectory rods used by the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department, does that reflect upon their crime scene investigation?
Objection foundation as to whether that reflects.
Good for you.
Overall,
Oh,
I don't expect to see crime investigation. I don't expect to see trajectory rods and bodies. And I would not use it for my opinion anyway because of all the variables that I'm aware of for using that.
but you can't say for certain with what
They
you
were
did
talking
that
about
it happened
the,
either.
Entry wound and exit wound of the victim.
Yes.
I think we had like a visual, the entry wound in the right flank, you said?
Yes.
Right, and do you remember where the exit wound was located?
Chest.
Chest area?
Yes.
Right, so just explain to me as an expert, entry and exit, which direction is that bullet going?
Back to front.
Back to front?
And up and
elevation?
down, from down to
I
up.
think it was slightly upward, but again, there's variability in how a person can move. So that doesn't necessarily mean the bullet was traveling upward.
Variability in how the person moves is one factor, right?
Yes.
The other factor, can the bullet continue to yaw in the body?
Yes.
Can. It depends on the type of body, depends on how close, how far, how much energy. Depends on how much it's going to have. But I will tell you this far low to this far high, I would venture to say he had to be almost on his head or bent over picking up something off the ground. Which he could have
Let
been.
me ask you, I'm looking for my, I think it's actually KK. That's exhibit KK. Let me ask you about common. Do you wear a backpack? Ever wear a backpack?
I have one backpack.
Backpack goes on the back, right?
It does.
Backpack, will it cover the sides of a person? Typically?
Typically, no. It depends how big the straps are.
And then when you're talking about the residue on clothing,
Sherry, I'm eating
the residue on clothing, right?
Yes.
And when a,
mixed nuts.
just use this example, when a bullet hits clothing, nothing interfering, I think your testimony was it's going to leave residue, right?
Well, the bullet leaves residue as well as the gases leaving with the barrel. So the bullet will actually have lead on it that it picks up in the barrel. And we call it bullet wipe. So when it strikes clothing, it will leave like a soot residue around the bullet hole. And that's if there's no intervening object and other things, you will see that. I think all that was tested for, but you have to ask the other expert.
Do you have any, in your report, in your review, was there any evidence of any bullet wipe residue in this on the victim's clothing?
Not in my review.
Here's that KK.
Then why did the prosecution not have the backpack tested? Hopefully that's coming in with another witness. But as a weapons specialist,
We show you with marked as defense KK. This is page 2. Remember testifying?
okay, we can look at that.
Remember testifying about that image?
They showed his body earlier, so I'm just kind of
You have no idea
cautious.
about where the photographer is standing or how high or how tall the photographer is taking that photo?
I don't.
I'm going to show you.
It depends on the angle of the photo, too. Every time I eat nuts,
same
I get
photograph
stuck
the
in my
government
teeth.
has. It's on state or defense exhibit KK, same location of the photograph,
Different height.
in the same direction. You see that one?
Yes.
This one's a little bit different, right?
All depends on the height and the angle of
See
the
that box
photograph.
in the right in the middle, that box?
I do.
And you testified earlier, there's no evidence of any strike marks on that box, right?
Not that I saw in the review of the crime scene documentation.
And
Not
but
what he
right
was
behind it,
provided.
you see like a horizon landscape right there?
I do.
Do you know what the elevation level rise is from point of photography to that spot? You know what that
I
is?
believe there's a creek bed, so it's trending downward as it goes that direction as it goes east, and the scan data supported that.
I'm talking about right at the, right, see, right where, this spot right there. Is that higher or lower? And then
He's talking about
It's higher than the
the,
box.
the ground.
and do you know, if you know, do you know where the victim's body
Depends
is?
on how high you hold the camera.
Roughly that direction.
Okay, guys, I got to stop here. It's driving me nuts. I was a professional photographer, still could be considered one, for more than 20 years. I used to do a lot of photography, including ranch, homes, portrait work, airplanes that have just been totally decked out on the airline. We take them out on the airstrip and take photographs to sell these multi-million dollar airplanes. So angle means everything. You can make something look smaller or bigger depending on your angle. You can make the horizon look lower or taller depending on your angle. He's grasping for straws here. Someone could have been up on a ladder for this picture for all we know. We don't know. So you can't use this. What they should have done is measured the defendant at his shoulder where he would hold the gun. And from that point is where your lens needs to be. The center of your lens. That's going to give you the bullet path. If they're doing this and got that shot, it's not accurate. And this guy can't testify to squat because he doesn't know the situation and the angles and how this photograph was taken. This prosecution is trying to scoop up some sense of, I hate to say dignity, but he's just trying to salvage. He's trying to
He
salvage.
asked you about left-handed or right-handed.
I'm right-handed, but I
Yeah.
shoot rifles left-handed.
You reviewed indicate any preference for a right-handed shooter or a left-handed shooter at all.
In terms of the ejection pattern,
No, did you review anything, any document, any piece of evidence that suggested anything about a right-handed or left-handed shooter?
I can't recall. I thought I might have heard something about that, but it wasn't anything I considered.
Let's talk about the ejection pattern. You talked about the little demo in the well. We talked about if I had a horizontal shot, straight ahead, right? My ejection pattern is going off to my right-hand side, right?
Yes.
Right. If I angle my gun up a little bit, the barrel changes, but what do you guys call that? The ejection port? Ejection port? I mean, it's still in the same general area, so would that significantly change my ejection pattern?
Can.
Well, I would need to do testing, but I would not anticipate it would significantly change. But again,
I'm
it
shooting
doesn't
this
apply
way,
to this
I might butt the gun here. If I'm shooting this way, I might butt it up here.
But is it going to be
Depends on the body.
significant?
I have the scar that goes from here to here.
121. So when we talk about change,
Okay, I have a scar that runs here to here. If I put a gun over here on that scar, that's going to hurt. So I don't ever train with a gun up there. I put it more to the inside of the scar. So that's going to change the gun. But when I shoot this way, I put it right in that shoulder. So the depth of field is going to change. He is grasping for straws. And of course, this expert did not do any kind of testing on any of this. So I think he needs to sit down and shut up because what he's doing is making it worse for himself.
Significant change or not, if I'm standing where the cones are at, horizontal forward, yellow is where the ejection pattern's at. If I were to rotate my gun up a little bit at a 35-degree angle, whatever, am I going to get considerable change? I'll have some geometry change, I got that.
You're going to have
But I don't
projection
have
change.
Will it be significant change?
Can be.
I think so. I've done similar testing with pistols, different orientations, and I've not.
It's going to change because he's not taking account that you're getting higher into the tree with more
Some
limbs.
change, but not significant. I think significant be up for argument.
I'm going to talk about that in a sec, but we're not talking about the pistol where you go upright and then go gangster style. We're not talking about that. Right. All right. Let's talk about significant. We're not, if my angle is 35 degrees, we're not talking about a shooter standing over here, are we?
I don't think so.
I know,
We're
and
not
I
talking
don't
about
think so are
shooter
two different things,
standing
Joe.
all the way out here, are we?
Again, I don't think so. I have to do empirical testing, but my experience, I would not anticipate that.
Higher up you aim it in it where
And
there's
you-
tree
you know
lines,
about-
you're going
about
to
the
hit trees.
What's your opinion about this tree branch in this case? About, is this tree branch the cause of the yaw, in your opinion?
There's no evidence that the tree branch was impacted by.
Do you know why the sheriff's department collected the tree branch?
I think it was photographed. My suggestion, I saw it in the photographs and I was like, well, that might be able to defect. I knew there was an potentially unstable bullet in play here, and I was looking for intermediate objects, and that was one photo of something that could have been an intermediate object, so it was collected and tested.
And that, do you remember when that was, when you requested the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department to collect that?
Not off the top of my head, probably slightly before they did recovery. I can check my.
Can you just check? Yeah, for me.
I had somebody ask me, am I going to be this hard on the defense? Yes, I am. If I see it, I'm going to call it. Once again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a cop. I have watched hundreds of hours of cases. I have, in my ASL training, I'm not a certified court interpreter, but I did do, when I did my internship in college, I opted to go watch a lot of court.
I actually don't have it in my file when they collected it. I think it was summer of 2023.
So I could
Right
decide
after
whether I wanted to do that or
visited
not.
the test fire.
I fell in love
Summer
with
of
court.
2023. The incident happened January 30th of 2023, so months later, right?
Yes.
You saw in a photograph a broken tree branch,
Yes.
and you requested recovery of that tree branch.
I did.
So
Let's talk about, we talk about clustering, talk about that rifle being in a set position shooting, right?
Yes.
And even in a set position shooting, it still had some variation when it hit the target 115 yards away.
With the bullet impact or the cartridge?
Bullet impact, that's not, okay, thank you. Bullet impact.
Yeah, bullet impact there is a variation in that particular style. And again, it wasn't the preferred method of stand that I would normally use, so there was a little bit of variability there, but I guess that's accurate.
most people who shoot
Yeah,
that
kinda
far
like
away
that.
or leaning on something or sitting
Put
down.
that gun in place.
Right.
It doesn't gyrate, move.
Correct.
And guns like that, they have a kick, right? They have a recoil,
Recoil.
right? Human factors play, and you shoot guns, right?
I do.
Duh.
There's always a recoil factor with a shooter, right?
There is.
And it changes based upon strength of the individual,
It could,
the age of the individual,
possibly.
if an individual's healthy or sick.
Have they had shoulder
Lots
replacement?
of factors.
Do they have arthritis? Is their grip good?
And the
Mine's
biggest
not.
factor is whether or not they're a good aim or not, right?
That's why when I hold a weapon, I hold it a specific way because I don't have the best of grip in one hand. That's why I shoot
Precision ability
left-handed
impact.
because my right hand's
clustering.
weaker. But I'm a right-handed person.
How good is that?
Yeah.
It can.
You testified that you've seen officers who qualify. When I say qualify, do you know what I'm referring to?
I do.
Explain to the jury what qualification means for a law enforcement officer.
Depends on the agency, but usually at least once a year, they have to fire their duty weapon at a course and shoot it at different distances and have a certain degree of accuracy.
Standing up,
to be able to
laying
carry the
down,
firearm.
running, crouching,
And so
squatting.
they have to hit a target and cluster that target, right?
Yes.
And to be a law enforcement officer, you got to be pretty good, right? To qualify.
Yes.
And you testified on cross that even with that kind of skill set, they still miss their target even at close ranges.
Absolutely.
Anybody can. Nobody's perfect.
One more second, Your Honor.
I don't see him helping himself. I think it would have been better for him to sit down and shut up.
Check with him.
I think you're just making it more, you're just hammering it home even more so. I love the defense's last round of questions.
You testified that no bullet, no projectile was found, right? And, do you know what efforts the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department went to try to locate the projectile, the bullet?
Metal detector the whole property? 170 acres?
Let me ask your opinion and your expert opinion. Is the AK, we talk about the wolf, is the wolf bullet the most consistent round to cause the injury to the victim in this case?
Many bullets can. Not just that
Most
one.
consistent? It's definitely consistent with everything about the ammunition type and that.
But it's not the only ammunition that can cause that.
And how about the use of the AK to cause that injury?
I'm not sure what you mean by the use of an AK.
Pretty consistent. We've got an injury, the distance, right? We have the severity of the injury. An AK can or cannot cause that injury.
Yep.
And just one more.
My AR can cause that injury. I'm kidding. I don't have that necessarily, but an AR, AK, and guess what drug dealers carry? ARs, AK-47s.
Just 1 second, Your Honor.
Oh, please don't put the body back up. I'm trying very hard, y'all. He got me once. I'm hoping he doesn't do it again.
I'm going to show you either A through M.
I'm ready
Can
to.
you put up?
I'm going to put this down just in case, because they surprisingly show the autopsy photo with the bullet wound earlier, and I'm learning this software. Okay, I'm learning this software
This is one of the
program, and
30
I do
one of the
not
features
want to
of
show that again.
35, Exhibit 35. Do you see where the victim's body is located, Rick?
I do.
You can see it, but you can't see it.
Circle around the victim's body.
That's part of the body.
Have you seen this photo before?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and what's in the background?
A tree,
Mesquite tree.
And further behind that?
2 lights, house.
Lights. Do you know what's behind? Do you know where the lights are coming from?
Based on, I think the orientation, that's the house.
The
More questions,
tree.
Your Honor.
Where are the other 8 bullets that were fired then? Because if one hit him, they've got to be somewhere around. But I suspect he was shot. They're going to go incognito, so I'm going to turn my volume down. I suspect he was shot, and I suspect he moved a little bit from where he was shot and dropped there. That's my humble opinion. I'm speculating like everybody else is, but there's no blood spatter on the ground. There's only pulling where he fell and where he stayed. So, I don't know. Gosh, y'all, my back is hurting. Oh, it's so tender. Want to let y'all know, during the big break, we're going to try the Dr. Pepper Peeps. Oh, my God, I'm a little scary. I feel like I'm one of those nighttime TVs where they sit here and go. I'm kidding. I can't do that. They have the nails and they go, try to put you to sleep. That just irritates me. But anyway, I'm having fun. I also have, and it's going to be noisy, a bag of birthday presents. I'm going to open. I kind of know what one of them is already, but I'm going to wait for y'all.
Your opinion, what direction would the victim fall if shot in relation to where you believe shots were fired from? Face up, face down, or face up?
Okay, we have jury question.
If you know.
It's a good question. It's really hard to evaluate that. I've seen many videos of violence incidents and people fall in a variety of ways. They usually fall in the direction, the momentum that they're traveling in, because they're focused on other
So if
things.
he's shot from the back
Even if they're twisting
through
at
the
time,
chest,
they
he's
can
going to
spin all
fall.
the way around because they're already started that twisting motion. Not that the bullet's twisting them around, it's just that they've started that action. And also there's some nervous reactions that happen, like involuntary jumps and things that occur. So it's really hard to evaluate or predict where someone would fall after being struck, even with a high energy bullet.
The other witness said, I'm shot. He put his hand up and fell
So let's
backwards.
get back to
Two different things. They have him facing forward, which means he was shot from the back and fell forward. But the other witness, the friend from Honduras, said he grabbed his chest, said he was shot and fell backwards. He could have been shot and walked a few steps and fell forwards. My thing is his fanny pack wasn't across his body like it was in his own personal database of photos on his phone. And through some comments made that the backpack and the fanny pack possibly had been gone through by the time Border Patrol had gotten there, appearing that someone had taken some stuff out of it. Speculation. I ought to get a shirt, in my humble opinion and my speculation. She's shaking her head no. I don't know if she wants the question asked. Maybe there is no objection.
okay. Sir,
Get back on the mic.
all right. I told you earlier that the lawyers did some work on their own last night, came in and this morning and told us about the stipulations that they had agreed to, and that made it possible for us to get this witness in and complete his testimony and let him get back to where he came from. Talked to the lawyers. They tell me that the trial and the pace of the trial is going just consistent with what they anticipate. So we're on track. We're not running behind or ahead of time. So given that, unless any of you have any objections, we're going to recess for the day and start back Tuesday morning at 8:30.
Okay, so they did not take off
Objection? This is your
today.
chance.
They're taking off Monday.
All right. Before you go, please remember the admonition of the court. It's again a long weekend, 3-day weekend. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not have any contact with the lawyers, defendants, witnesses, representatives. Do not conduct any independent investigations.
That guy reminds me of my grandpa.
Post block or post anything on the internet
Gosh, he reminds me of my grandpa.
during the trial.
Makes me miss him.
To avoid media coverage. With that, have a good weekend. We will see you Tuesday morning, next Tuesday morning at 8:30. Again, Tuesday through Friday next week. Thank you.
I suspect they'll be working somewhat this weekend, if not Monday, in their offices. Yes, I have a nut in my mouth. I'm sorry. I think that judge is off the bench and the jury is gone and everybody's out of there for a long weekend for the Easter weekend. I'm just watching. I like to watch court and see who or what I see. And we're done. We are done for the today, y'all. Okay. I did not have an aha moment. I am waiting for, and I'm sorry, my eyes are itchy, allergy season again. So I don't have makeup on because I'm just rubbing it all off. I was hoping they would have something to ring a bell to where I could go, okay, I believe you, prosecution. But I did not get to really pay attention to this morning's, other than when I was in my car, I was listening. I have some kick butt hearing aids that allow me to listen on my cell phone. So I didn't hear anything other than really him, the witness, just giving his background and kind of educational stuff. But the meat of this, I have not heard anything yet that could even prove that this guy had even shot the victim. I'm shocked that it's made it this far into trial. If I was an alternate juror, I call myself an alternate juror. I'm an outsider looking in. I'm not a lawyer. But as an alternate juror, they've got a very huge mountain to climb when it comes to the prosecution. Next week, we're going to get into some text and emails and things where this guy is blowing steam and talking about, man, give me 30 of them, let me line them. I don't know what all he said, but it's not very nice. Once again, men, they smart off like women do, but in a different way. They tell tall tales. They kind of joke back and forth. I hear it with my son. And they just josh each other, and they also speak in frustration. But no matter what he said in the past, there's no evidence. Whether he hates people, loves people, it doesn't matter. There's not been anything that I can hang my hat on to say he's guilty. And that's where I'll leave it for now. All right, y'all. Dr. Pepper Peeps. I'm going to try one. I'm going to save some of these. I have a friend that's a peepaholic, and I got her some of these. They are kind of like a brownish color, reddish brown. Dr. Pepper is my go-to soft drink when I drink them. All right. I wish I had a drum roll. Do I have a drum roll? I have a rim shot. I can't hear it. I hope you guys can. Oh, that's why. That's all I got. I've got to learn to download some stuff. What does ducking sound like? Oh, I don't know. Okay. Let's try it. Here we go. I'll put some of this on. Y'all. Those are freaking good, y'all. Those are good. Not heavily flavored. A hint of Dr. Pepper. More sweet than anything. I'd eat those. Hands down. I'm amazed. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll hold on to the presents. We'll open them on Monday or Tuesday. I will go live on Monday. I'm going to take the weekend off. I do need to do my jail widow. I'll probably do that tomorrow. Court has kind of altered that schedule a little bit. So I'll go live on Monday, and we'll listen to the morning part of the trial. So that will catch us up. I have found I'm going to have to buy another piece of equipment, and I need extra computers to be able to increase the sound of myself. So I'll be working on that. It's going to take me some time, but I'm doing the best I can with what I got for court. But if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. In the meantime, y'all have a rockin' Easter weekend. And we'll see you when I do Jail Widow tomorrow. And then Monday, we'll do the morning session.